Well, certainly, Matt and Charles, I was sharing with you guys that I was concerned about some new participation that we have. I felt like some folks were late to the party, as it were. Like we've been dealing with race. I've been Black all my life. This has always been a problem since I've been here, and beyond that, my parents' generation and others. And so, yes, while it is welcoming to have more support, it doesn't always feel genuine because we've been at the party, if I may, for quite some time, trying to make some adjustments, and there have been some latecomers. We welcome you, but sometimes if we're just being honest, sometimes the genuineness is not always there.
I wanted to say, agree with the one of the last persons who said they do think things are different. And I do think they are. When we have protest movements of all different colors, many, many white people in these protests, I thought, okay, it'll last about 2 days. When it's going on 3 weeks and 4 weeks, and then you have Dan Snyder, who said never change Redskins' name. And now that is changing. I do think the awareness in the United States has definitely changed. We are in a new era in many ways than one, other than just the virus.
So I work in a library, and a library and my life in a library is so a white space. We don't like loud voices. We don't like people who don't know anything about the research process before they come into the library. And there's an interesting norming that happens when you sort of train as a librarian. So I know that I've contributed to systemic racism by having these expectations of my students and library users that are grounded in racist expectations.
So recently, a Facebook friend from high school posted on her page over the months, she's suddenly become woke. I believe this is the term that we use in the culture, right? That she's got her Black Lives Matter paraphernalia, t-shirts, sweatshirts, footwear, boots. I mean, she's got it hanging outside, blankets on the trees. And she's been sharing every day a quote, like an MLK quote, any quotes that she can find. And so she's been encouraging all of her friends, we've got to speak up, we've got to do something. She's white, by the way, if you haven't picked up on this. And just the other day, a white person was in her neighborhood following 2 Black kids. And she could hear this person saying, what are you doing? Why are you here? What's going on? And so she felt this was her moment to do something. She felt like there was something on the inside, like I've got to respond. This is what I've been training for. And so she wasn't able to deliver. She didn't know what to say. She wanted to say something, didn't really want to get involved. She wasn't quite sure, do they belong in the neighborhood? Maybe they're not supposed to be there. I don't know. And so instead, she did what you do in 2020, right? You post about this on Facebook. And so she shares this story on Facebook, and her white friends say, well, what were you really going to do? What did you think was going to happen if you said something? And so she got so much support from her white friends that said, well, just the fact that you were aware of that situation, the fact that you saw it and you thought something was wrong, that's a step forward and you should be proud of yourself. And so as you're thinking of comments to share, just want you to keep that in mind, that hopefully when we're going through this presentation that you feel encouraged to say and to do something.
Yes, I was trying to take notes so that I could be clear about what I'm responding to. And I may have some of this misinterpreted, which we are all experiencing even with Facebook, and there's a lot of misinterpretation, but quite a bit of it can be interpreted well. What I definitely want to respond to the thought that we are in a new era. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I want to say that I'm from North Carolina, and I literally was in my principal's office more than 3 or 4 times a month for things that my counterparts would be simply corrected for in class. I was sent to the principal's office. And from that very beginning, that learning, I was in the understanding that I always had to act differently. I always had to be more docile and make sure that I didn't use what they call the inside voice. And, what I want to say is that today, it's not a new era, it's just heightened and more visible in that sense. The fact that we don't understand how awful it is that politicians who are calling those that are protesting animals, and how they're being told that, they're burning things down and they're destructive. And some of my Black friends saying, oh, they're destroying their own neighborhoods. They're angry. They're upset. MLK said that the protest is the voice of people who this is the way they have to communicate, because you didn't hear them before. This era is a long time coming, but it's continuing because we are still being targeted, and we're tired of dying just for a busted tail light. I have to teach my son to be, just like I was taught, be more docile when they come up to your car. If you get stopped in North Carolina, anywhere, be more docile, be careful, ask can I reach for my wallet? This area is this crap is continuing because we've allowed it. And allies sitting by being silent when people are being racist, it's wrong. Dare to be different and say, hey, you're wrong, stop it. If it's your friend, if it's your family member, your silence is complicit. Your silence is complicit. We have to fight in a different way. And if that way gets to be violent, then so be it. They didn't listen to Martin Luther King with his nonviolence. They killed him anyway. And we need to recognize that. And it's getting worse because we have a president who continues to encourage it. So I don't want anyone to be silent. I want you to speak up if you dare to. And if you are afraid to, I totally understand that as well. But we need allies who are going to get in the trenches and get dirty with us. Or you cannot call yourself an ally simply because you nurse my wounds after my back has been stabbed. We need more. And that starts with anything we see right in front of us. I had students who were racist, and they were actually supported by administration in some cases. But I never back down from that. And I fight it until I make them understand that this fight is bigger than what's happening right here on campus. And we have to know that. We have to know that our brown and Black lives depend on it. Either you're an ally or you're not. There's no gray area. And we have to fight together to make this change happen.
And I wanted to say one of the things we have to do is actively work to shift the wealth, to find Black-owned businesses and businesses owned by people of color, and put our money where our mouth is and shop at those Black-owned businesses and put more dollars in Black pockets. Because I think it was Sally mentioned that Dan Snyder has changed his mind, and huzzah, it's, the Washington football team is getting a new name. But Dan Snyder was moved not by a sense of the right thing to do. Dan Snyder was moved by money. And money and power run this country. And money and power are white held right now. And so I think it's an important thing to do in some small way to seek out Black-owned businesses and patronize them and shift that money.
I'm kind of like nervous at the same time. I'm one of those quiet African-American women that try not to say anything, but after looking at the comments and seeing the comments from my colleagues, it really astounds me, this idea when Sally had said this thing of we're changing in this new era. And even though this may be slightly true, we still see this idea of us still not making it to where we need to be. Dr. Stanley has been very adamant in this idea of us being strong and being able to actually stand up for ourselves. And even myself, I can remember going to a all-white public school and elementary. And my job was always to pick up the dirty tissue and towels from the rest of the white kids because I was the only Black in the class. And even during those times in the 80s, to see that nothing really has changed. I noticed that now, even when I'm coming from a predominantly Black college, going now to this kind of diverse college, that I too am code switching, like Tonda said. And this idea, I'm trying to fit in the best way that I can in order to keep my job, in order to feel safe, in order to know that I'm not a threat. I just want to go to work, get my job done, get paid, and come home. So being able to speak my mind here is very strong because I feel that we need to voice our opinions, but also not just say these things, but make the changes that we have to make. You know, hearing this idea of the librarian, which I greatly appreciate and respect, to say that this idea of this systemic racism of her having these loud voices, it shocked me because we connect these ideas to African-American people being loud, being angry, even being a Black woman. Even if I enunciate my words to some people, prior vice president that I had at another college, every time I would enunciate my words, she thought that I was being angry. So these are things that we have to change, but we have to become aware of it. We can't continue to use these slow steps of saying, you know, after, you know, we thought that the riots and people standing up for the riots would be only 2 weeks and now it's 3 weeks. Those things are positive, but we need it to be constant. And I guess, you know, I just wanted to say something about that, but thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
Yeah, I had the whole colorblind thing until about 5th grade. I'll say. Let me to one comment. If you don't see my color, you don't see me. Black is who I am. That is a cultural, ethnic, you know, thing that I'm very proud of. That makes me who I am. But yeah, in about 5th grade was when the colorblind shades fell off. When I got bused to school away from my home neighborhood because the schools in the white neighborhoods were significantly better. And the first white kid called me that word. I'd never experienced that before. That was when I knew that there was something very different about my world in that moment. Shortly after that, we, you know, the kid and I had a conversation about what he said. Good conversation. And it was at that time when my grandfather began taking me down south every summer to where he grew up and was raised in the Jim Crow South. Literally walking the road with him. The road where he would walk to go to school and the white kids would spit on him from the buses while he was walking. He had me walk that road up and down while he told me those stories. We eventually reached the middle of the town. This is in the 1980s. Reached the middle of the town where, if you guys have ever seen, what's the show? In the Heat of the Night, right? Where the train passes through the middle of the town down there, whatever. Literally that type of town in North Carolina. There was an old movie house on one side of the train track. He took me to that movie house and the signs, white and colored, in 1984 were still very visible, right? And, you know, he spent a lot of time talking about what he went through, my grandma went through, my great-grandfather went through, the things that he had to do to survive. He raised me, so I call him Dad. My father used to say the word colored a lot, right? So I'm black. I'm like, colored. What are you talking about? I understood it, but I didn't get why it was so hard for him to shake, right? It was a survival mechanism for them to use words like that. So having moved up to Philly and all, it was just difficult for him to let go of that vernacular, that vocabulary. Hearing him on the phone talking to my grandfather, and they're talking about different people down south. It's like, well, was he a colored boy? Like literally saying this up until like 1990. I mean, it was really weird. But that's when the color blindness went away. It was 5th grade for me, and my dad, God rest his soul, made sure I understood everything that came with being a black man in this country from a very young age. I just wanted to share that.